Hi everyone, I'm Nina Goradia. I'm a somatic experiencing practitioner on the non-dual path. I have with me today Jenny, who has been my client for, let's see, a year and a half, maybe.
That's right.
And she is here to share some of her journey with somatic experiencing, how it's impacted her, and how it's helped with emotional development and feeling self assured in her body to the bone, which she talks
Mhm.
about. It's really amazing. So I hope this can help any of you who are curious about like how can SE impact me in a practical way in my life? How does that show up? So thank you, Jenny, so much for being here. Would you like to introduce yourself? And then we'll just kind of let it flow as we hear about your journey.
Absolutely. My name is Jenny. I've been working with Nina for probably, I think it is about a year and a half. I had been working with a therapist um, to kind of um, heal some things in me that I knew needed to be worked on. And I had made some progress with talk therapy, but something seemed to be missing. A piece of the puzzle seemed to be missing. And I happened upon a somatic experiencing, I think one of your videos or something on Instagram, and I was like, okay, wait a minute. This seems like a piece of the puzzle that has been missing, and it's made a working with you has made a huge difference in my life since then.
I'm so happy to hear this. And would you like to kind of go into some of the things you've noticed?
Just thinking back how I feel in my physical body versus how I felt when we first started is totally different. I hope I can explain it in a way that makes sense to people, but I when I first started this journey, I felt kind of disconnected from myself a little bit. Um, like I wasn't completely comfortable in who I was. I didn't fully know who I was or accept who I was. Um, and over the course of doing this work, I feel like myself almost for the first time in my life. And I'm a grown adult. Um, so, yeah, physically, I feel different in my body. Emotionally, I feel different. I move through the world in a different way. Um, I'm setting boundaries like I never have, and it all of those things feel comfortable. There's not this resistance to doing that. It feels like just a natural progression.
Yeah, that's usually what I see. That's the journey I've gone through as well doing this work. And it's so interesting because I was sharing with you the last time we spoke that when I first started setting boundaries, it felt like I was gonna die.
Yes.
Felt like because the stakes were so high when some of those patterns were formed. And so when we start to feel through what comes up for us and accept those feelings, allow them to be seen and heard, and then they kind of come off of us once we've acknowledged them, then you don't have that same reaction anymore. And it just feels like you're in alignment with yourself. And it's like, no, I'm completely in touch with what my values are, my intuition, my boundaries, my needs. And it feels almost effortless after a while to just speak them and not feel any sort of discomfort, even. And sometimes that can still come up. It's not like, oh, that will be gone forever. But then you just meet that part of your experience with that kindness. And it just keeps shifting and growing.
Yeah, that is totally true. I think what you said about when you first started setting boundaries, like that is really uncomfortable. Or it was for me to say, no, I can't do. I felt like if I said no, there needed to be a 15-minute explanation as to why I wouldn't do that, even though I knew in my head that that wasn't necessary, but in my body, I felt like that was necessary. There was guilt or some other sorts of uncomfortable feelings, but I've learned, I mean, you're right, there still is some discomfort sometimes, but I've learned what that feels like and that that's perfectly fine. And if I accept it and go, well, that feels a little uncomfortable, then a couple minutes later, it's gone, and I haven't betrayed myself by setting that boundary or by doing something that I didn't want to do, but didn't feel like I could say no. That I think has been a huge change is I feel like I am living in alignment with what is right for me, not what is right for other people.
Right, exactly. And if we can share what we spoke about right before this change happened, do you remember what it is that we cleared?
Oh, what did we clear? We cleared, oh, it was um fear of judgment, I think,
Yeah. Yeah, from other
and
people.
seeking approval from other people. And I am not kidding you when I say when we cleared that, it was like a switch. It was like I didn't realize what I had been holding. Like I knew that I was always looking outside of myself for approval or acceptance, but I wasn't sure why that was. And then as soon as we cleared that, it was like that fear, what, or I don't know if it was fear or shame or what exactly, but that was definitely a turning point, like night and day. And I think I was telling you, I feel different, like in my bones. I feel like I'm not a kid trapped in an adult's body waiting for, to see if everything's okay. I feel like an adult for the first time. I would say in a long time, but it could be the first time ever where I truly feel like, oh, I'm a grown up and I can say, I am not doing that. I am doing this. And it all feels good and acceptable. And there's no guilt or shame or fear associated with it anymore. It's fascinating. It feels so different from how I felt before.
Yeah, because when we go direct, see, a lot of us are seeking for changing the outside to then feel okay on the inside. If I get acceptance, validation from other people, if I avoid their judgment, then I can feel okay. And we had to do that as children because we didn't have power, we had to
Mm-hmm.
survive. But when we continue doing that as adults, I mean, we can't meet all the expectations of us without betraying ourselves. And so when we go direct and
Totally.
say, I can go internal directly and give myself that acceptance, then suddenly my needs are met and I don't need to look for that from the outside.
It is like magic almost. I mean, that's what it feels like. It really is. Um, yeah. And it's just such a complete shift in how I feel about work, how I feel, dealing with members of my family, how I feel with my friend group. I feel like I can show up in a way that is authentic and genuine and open and accepting of them as well.
Yeah, that's what happens when we accept ourselves, we can accept other people.
Yes. And I'm finding that I am more curious rather than approaching situations with judgment. Like I'm approaching situations or people with curiosity, like, I wonder how this will turn out versus, oh my gosh, I'm going to worry about it for the 2 weeks before it happens and then worry again the 2 weeks after it happens about what actually occurred. I'm not having those feelings internally anymore.
Yeah, it's funny. It's like I kind of wish we were all told as kids, like, it's very important you accept yourself.
Oh my gosh.
For self-love, because look, think about all the messages we're getting. We're the most psychologically marketed to society, maybe in the history of the world. And all of these messages, almost all of them are implying you're not enough as you are. And they're trying to manufacture need within us in order for us to
Hmm.
purchase their products. You know, oh, if you have this kind of car, these kind of clothes, then you'll have the love that you want. But what if it's like, no, I can just give myself the love and then I'm good. And then I can
Yeah.
choose what I want. I don't have to do things hedging bets, trying to hope that I get love one day from the
Hmm.
outside. And even if we do, that person can just change their mind. That situation is transient. That's not a good enough bet for me. So we
Yeah.
have to bet on something that's always available to us. And that's where we can stay centered in that, because then we're not seeking, we're not searching for that thing that we can't ever feel satisfied without. And so
Yes.
I experience it as just kind of like sitting a little bit further back in myself, like being more centered rather than kind of being here with my energy, searching, looking. It's just like a sitting back and being neutral about a lot of things.
Yeah.
And
And just allowing things to happen and realizing that I am grounded enough in myself to respond as things come up rather than feeling almost like this anxious panic of having to be on alert to control what happens. It's like, no, I can just step back and observe and allow things. And yeah, it's a totally different way of being. It really is.
it's being, because we're not as reactive as if we're getting our needs met. Like, so if there's a starving animal, starving dog, it can get angry, right? But if you just keep feeding it and it's well fed, it can be really cuddly and cozy. And
Yeah.
that's how we are with food, but with the spiritual food, or the self-love that we're needing. That is a valid human need, but we need that
Yeah.
from ourselves first. And I like to give an example that, say, like, you invite me for dinner, but I don't have my own food source. And then you have to cancel. I can freak out and start reacting. Oh my gosh, what are you talking about? We had planned for 4 o'clock. But I mean, if I have my own food source and I'm not dependent on you for that food, okay, no problem. And then if I do end up coming over, it's just nice. It's just the
Yeah.
icing on the cake because I have the cake myself. And that's how
Yourself.
connection can be, where it's not this addiction to seeking validation from other people, but
Hmm.
it just feels nice to give love and share love and connect, but we're not desperate for it. And that's kind of the
Yes.
way I want to empower people to take back their ability to give themselves love.
That is interesting. The word you used was desperate, and that resonates with me. You're right. There is this kind of sense of desperation almost when you are seeking approval from others. But when you have it, you're like, it's fine. It's
Yeah.
fine. An interesting use of words, but that I think that describes very well what that feels like.
I think that's the position children are in. They are desperate to get that validation because the child needs to feel loved in their family, to feel like they are safe, that they can survive. That they may not be aware of this consciously, but it's built in. And so
Hmm.
children will bend and can be molded in whatever way to please the parent or society so that they can get that absolutely needed need for love met from
Hmm.
those who do have the power.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think one thing that you've helped me do is, and we've talked a lot about this as we've been working together, the strategies that that I had as a kid that kept me safe and got approval from my caregivers, I was still using those, subconsciously because that's what worked as a
Right,
kid. And so it took some stepping back and thinking, I don't need to use those anymore. Those are not helpful. They're not necessary, but I still had a lot of feelings wrapped up in that we had to feel through and integrate, and there has been a lot of working through that, and I that is not something that I knew how to do on my own. And you have, like, that has been, I think, integral in this journey. I don't think I could have um, come to the place where I am now without feeling through all of those feelings from, ages ago.
that's the thing, is that consciously we know, yeah, I'm supposed to love myself. Yeah, I'm supposed to not seek for validation. I knew that for a
Totally.
decade, and I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, everyone says look inside, the answers are inside, but no one tells you how to do it or
How
what
to
to
do
do.
that? I've been looking. Where is it? Yes.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
how I felt, and then finally
Totally,
stumbling
Nina.
upon this work,
Totally.
it's like, okay, I know I'm supposed to, but like what's the block? Like, am I just wired in a certain way that's not even conscious yet? And then you make that conscious, you observe what's happening, and then you meet that wiring of the child. You meet that and you give her the needs that she had. You meet them in this moment. And it's almost always that these wounds, they need to just be met with compassion, acceptance, being seen, being heard, being
Hmm.
acknowledged, and being felt. We don't have to do
Yes.
it with our mind. We have to have the mind kind of step back, stop trying to do and fix or think that something is wrong with us, and just observe. And then the body just does its magic. It unwinds the trauma if you allow it to. But of course, we have to do it safely and a little bit at a time so that it's not too overwhelming, and especially
Yeah.
with larger traumas. So it is a process. But for you, it seemed to really shift after that session. So I want to reassure everyone, it's not going to take a year and a half for everybody, but it's a
No.
lot of good work. But this happened after that one session, and she'd
It
done a lot of
was,
preparation. Yeah.
yeah, we had done a lot of clearing things, but there was something about that approval from others, that fear of others' judgment. There was something about that session that it was like you flipped a switch somehow. Like something in there had been, like you said, intellectually, I knew that it, other people's opinions of me are none of my business. You read all of those things, but there was something about whatever we cleared during that was like you turned a switch, and it was like, oh, my physical being to my bones feels different.
Yeah.
It sounds bananas, but it is the truth. It
But
does.
I think that people who've experienced this, like, I think they really get it. In fact, I'm gonna link a video here of Teal Swan describing that feeling. It's just like a 1 minute short, so I'll link that here for you guys. But I saw that after our session, I was like, yes, like that is how it feels. But
Yeah.
we were speaking earlier about how we might not even know that that's even a possibility, because if it's all we've ever known to feel like we don't have that and we're not comfortable in our skin, it's almost like after that switch happens, it's wow, this is what it feels like to feel like an adult, and I'm not
Yes.
needing, I'm not kind of with my hand out in that way. Of course, we all need help and we need to help each other, but this is like I'm not with my hand out asking for someone to accept me when I am not accepting myself, or I simply don't know how to. I don't know how to do it because it's not the willpower skill set that most of us have really developed to
Hmm.
survive in
Hmm.
society. it's a totally different skill set. It's a letting go of the willpower and just simply feeling. It's the skill set we had as children, but was stomped out of us slowly.
That is true. Yeah, yeah. It's the being rather than the doing. We do all the time. And I think it overrides the being quite often, or at least for me. I don't know how it is
Oh
for other
yeah, for
people,
almost
but
everybody.
for
Yeah,
sure.
we're striving, trying to go uphill in life, and when we go downhill or when we're just still and when we're present, we are met with what we've been running away from, and it's usually feelings. So if I can
Hmm.
calm down enough and just be with whatever it is, I don't even have to choose it. It's whatever's the top layer of the onion. It's just there. And if I can be with it, that comes off me, then the next layer, then the next layer, and then I'm feeling lighter. And then I'm much more in
Hmm.
touch with my true nature rather than my programming. And that's the discernment that's so important with the self realization work and non duality. It's like when I'm listening to thoughts in my mind, I need to discern, is that me or is that my program? Because as long
Hmm.
as I follow my program, especially if it's not like a functional one. If I grew up in a dysfunctional family and I had to compromise so much to survive, then that is not going to be in alignment or sustainable for me as an adult with my
Hmm.
energy. And so the body's going to give that feedback, and I need to keep realigning. And when I can let that program go, it's really a letting go process. I'm going to have to feel what it was covering. These emotions are bubbling to the surface. And if I just
Hmm.
keep running away, doing and distracting, and the same ones are going to just keep coming up. But if I can just,
They do.
right,
Yes, they
just be
do.
still and just be with it and heal myself, heal that relationship I have with myself, then that is what will allow it to finally feel seen and its
Yeah.
message has been received, so it's no longer necessary there. And then we
Hmm.
benefit from that, really from that added life force because this constant game of not wanting to feel, it's draining. It takes a
It
lot of
is
our energy to be anxious.
for sure. And I have even noticed that I do feel more present just in my everyday life. And you're absolutely right about the exhaustion. Being anxious and searching in that way it does take a lot of your energy. Um, so not doing that, it really does feel different. And what you were saying about the program, listening to those thoughts in your head, I found that I don't have as many of those just as a general rule. And it's not like I've been trying not to. Um, it is less, I have to put less effort towards stopping those thoughts because there just aren't as many in my head anymore.
Yeah, because the compensatory thoughts we develop are simply there to help us not feel the feelings that we couldn't tolerate or didn't have capacity for. So when we feel what those thoughts are protecting, the thoughts have nothing left to defend, and a lot of them will just disappear.
Yeah. And that is such a gift. I mean, it is. It is such a gift. And like you said, I feel like I have more capacity for just, existing. Yeah.
Absolutely, and
It's
we're
amazing.
we're okay to exist as we are. We can just accept. I don't have to earn my place on this planet. I mean, I don't wanna
Yeah.
hurt anybody, but I don't have to do something to deserve breathing the air and being here. We all intrinsically have that worth. We don't have to hustle for our worth, which is a great
Hmm.
phrase Brené Brown says.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think that, your journey has really, I mean, your energy is so different from when we met. It's like night and day in some
Yes.
ways. In some way, that energy of like I'm totally secure and I don't need your approval. I'm good. I mean, that's
Yeah.
power in a good way.
Is power in a good way. And I do think you're right. I do think my energy is different. I think it feels different for sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I think I've told you several times, this work has changed my life. It really has. And I know that probably sounds hyperbolic, but being in this body, like I can tell you this is different. I feel better. I feel present. Um, yeah, it's 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 life changing. It really, really is.
I'm so glad. And what we were just talking about with having more energy, I was thinking about how the brain requires 50% of the glucose in the body. So if we're
Oh, I
having
didn't know
less
that.
thoughts, we're going to also be less exhausted. So that's
Definitely.
another part of it. And it takes energy to push those emotions down and manage that. Even if we don't know that we're doing that, it's still taking energy. So it does take some energy to feel them. But then after that,
Hmm.
you've saved all this energy that you would have needed to
Yeah,
indefinitely push them down.
for sure. I definitely feel less exhausted, less drained. Yeah, for sure. It's a, a really big shift.
I'm so glad.
I cannot say enough good things about this work. I really can't.
I'm so grateful to have been with you in this journey and witness all of this. It's been really amazing. Is there any last thing that you want to share with the audience? Something that you wish you had known or someone had shared with you, or just whatever's on your mind?
I think the one thing that I kept hearing is, trauma is stored in the body. Trauma is stored in the body. And I kept hearing that, and intellectually I knew that, but I wasn't sure how to go about releasing that. Um, and this was the way to do that. Like your guidance and your expertise in, you know, guiding me slowly through this process. Like you said, you don't want to release everything all at once. Um, it can look daunting when you first start it, but it's really not. And it's so beneficial just from the very start. And you can feel the progress as you go. Um, it's not horrible, it's not painful, it's empowering and freeing. What can look like really scary stuff at the beginning, it's not scary. It's freeing. It really is.
Yeah, it's almost always it's the pulling the curtain back and the Wizard of Oz is just some guy. He's not as scary, right? But our
Totally.
feelings, we've just kind of been conditioned to fear them because most of us weren't co-regulated with as kids. We had traumas, there wasn't enough capacity. So we don't know any different, right? It
Right.
served us in some ways to fear our emotions to survive our lives, but when we discover, like, wait a minute, are you telling me that in most cases they are totally harmless? There are certain people in certain situations, it's a small percentage of people that might have some sort of diagnosis or something that we do want to have some caution when recommending
Hmm.
this kind of work, and they might need comprehensive help from different
Yeah.
professions. But I can tell you, with just about everyone I've ever worked with over the last 12 or 13 years now, it's been scarier thinking about feeling the emotion than the feeling of the emotion, especially when you're facilitated.
Yes, I think that's true. The anticipation was worse. Yeah. And it's just you get to a point where you're like, where do I feel that?
Yeah.
Where it's a curious, you're approaching it from a sense of curiosity versus fear, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it can even be like, I'm an adventurer on this planet in this body, and I want to feel every part of this experience coming up in me. Like it takes that kind of
Hmm.
adventure spirit as well sometimes.
I think that's true. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Jenny, for being willing to come on here and share a bit about your experience.
Absolutely.
I think it's so
Absolutely.
relatable.
It is my pleasure. And I say it every time, but I will say it again. I am so grateful. to have your help in this journey. I really am.
It's been an honor and a pleasure.
Thank
So,
you.
all right. Take care, everyone. We'll see you in the next video.